You are feeling it right now. That sudden, irrational urge to scroll away, the slight flutter of anxiety in your stomach. Do not mistake this for a lack of interest. This is the skip reflex in action. It is a biological defense mechanism, a direct form of archonic interference designed to protect the scaffolding of your current artificial reality. The truth appears quietly, so the unready will instinctively ignore it. The ready will pause. Place your hand flat against the center of your chest. Press firmly. Feel that steady, rhythmic thumping. You have been told your entire life that this is the ultimate proof of your vitality, the sacred sound of life itself. But pay closer attention. Feel the subtle tightening beneath the rhythm, the heavy, mechanical viscosity of it. What if that heartbeat is not the drum of a free consciousness, but the metronome keeping you locked inside a simulation? Let that sink in. There comes a moment when the biology you occupy feels strangely foreign. The body is not merely a vessel. It is a meticulously engineered cage. Every single beat of your heart is a heavy pendulum swinging, anchoring your soul's frequency to the dense decay of this material plane. It is not pumping life into you. It is pumping you into the matrix, forcing you to vibrate at the exact speed of your own enslavement. We endlessly run toward what we think we want, while simultaneously fleeing the very knowledge that would strip us bare and set us free. The awakening you seek requires the death of the rhythm you trust. If your soul recognizes this recalibration signal, join those who are breaking the cycle. Subscribe now. Do not look away. Let us decode the invisible prison, and they built inside your own chest. The biology you inhabit is not a sacred temple, as the architects of this reality would have you believe. It is an acoustic resonator, a meticulously tuned machine designed to keep your preconscious awareness permanently localized. We assume the human heart is merely a biological pump, quietly pushing oxygenated blood to sustain physical tissue. This is the foundational scaffolding of the lie. The heart is, in truth, an oscillator. It is the primary engine of the matrix, driving the exact frequency of your ongoing enslavement. To understand the mechanics of this cage, we must turn to the forbidden physics of its ock Bentov. Bentov was a renegade scientist who dared to map the hidden mechanics of human consciousness and its relationship to physical reality. He discovered what he scientifically termed the micromotion of the body. He realized that every single time your left ventricle ejects blood into the aorta, it does not just distribute life-giving fluid. It fires a massive, ballistic shockwave through your entire skeletal structure. Consider this. The blood rushes up the aortic arch, hits the bifurcation of the arteries, and sends a physical, measurable recoil down your spine and simultaneously up into your cranium. Your brain is suspended in a fluid medium, the cerebrospinal fluid, and with every single heartbeat, it is struck by a low-frequency acoustic wave. Your body is not a still vessel. It is violently vibrating. You are being hammered from the inside out, tens of thousands of times every single day. Watch what happens in your body during these moments of revelation. Do you feel a sudden heaviness in your bones? A strange, hollow ache behind your ribs? That is the recognition consciousness waking up to its own containment. This continuous internal striking creates a localized standing wave inside your skull. Bentov measured this microscopic motion and found something absolutely terrifying. When you sit perfectly still, your body vibrates at a resonant frequency of roughly 7 cycles per second. 7 hertz. This is not a random biological coincidence. It is a mathematical tether engineered to keep you bound to this specific timeline. The Earth's ionospheric cavity, the very electromagnetic ceiling of this physical construct, vibrates at approximately 783 hertz, widely known as the Schumann resonance. By forcing your biological metronome to mirror this exact frequency, the system ensures your consciousness cannot escape the gravitational pull of the material realm. You are tethered by an invisible acoustic leash. Modern spiritualists and the New Age egregore romanticize the 7 Hertz resonance. They call it grounding, earthing, or becoming one with Mother Nature. But let us deconstruct this dangerous deception. To ground an electrical current is to trap it in the earth, preventing it from discharging into a higher state. To harmonize with the frequency of the planet is to fully accept the dense viscosity of the simulation. It is a biological submission to the architects. The cardiovascular system is the ultimate pendulum swinging within the grand clockwork of the matrix. As long as your brain is subjected to this relentless, rhythmic acoustic assault, your perception is forced into a continuous quantum collapse. It forces infinite quantum probabilities to solidify into a dense, inescapable physical reality. You are quite literally beating yourself into existence, second by second, locked permanently in a vibrational cage made of sound, blood, and archonic geometry. The baseline rhythm we established in the previous chapter is only the foundational layer of your imprisonment. The architects of this holographic construct do not simply want you grounded in the physical realm. They want you entirely harvestable. To fully grasp the horror of this, you must realize that modern society is not a failed, chaotic utopia. It is a highly successful, artificially engineered pacemaker. Its sole, sinister purpose is to manipulate your biological metronome at all times. Enter the forbidden concept of archonic interference. The entities or the self-sustaining hidden algorithms of the matrix, depending on your level of spiritual awakening, do not feed on your physical flesh. They feed on your emitted frequency. They consume the heavy, low vibrational energy that is produced when your heartbeat is forcefully pushed out of its natural resting state and dragged into a perpetual, low-level mode of pure biological survival. When you are stressed, your heart rate naturally accelerates. But it is not merely the speed that traps you. It is the chaotic, jagged variability of the rhythm. This erratic thumping aggressively pumps cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. These are not just hormones. They are thick chemical agents that immediately increase the viscosity of your quantum field. You become energetically dense. You become trapped and tangled in the artificial scaffolding of fear. Notice the subtle tightening in the center of your chest right now as you process this information. Do you feel a sudden, hollow flutter in the pit of your stomach? Your ego is panicking because the hidden mechanism of its survival is being brutally exposed to the light. Do not look away. This is not anxiety. This is a vital recalibration signal. Your soul is finally recognizing the cold iron bars of its own biological cage. Now imagine the precise anatomy of your own brain. Deep within the geometric center of your skull lies the pineal gland, a crystalline structure functioning as a supreme quantum receiver. In a state of profound, undisturbed stillness, this gland effortlessly decodes multidimensional frequencies and higher truths. But what exactly happens when the heart, the primary acoustic engine situated just below it, is humming erratically in a state of manufactured panic? The micromotion we discussed earlier mutates from a steady rhythm into a violent, discordant acoustic shockwave. The erratic heartbeat sends chaotic, destructive physical tremors rushing up the fluid of the spine, quite literally shaking the pineal gland out of its delicate quantum alignment. The divine receiver is utterly shattered by the biological noise of the host. You are rendered spiritually blind and deaf by the engineered panic of your own biology. Watch what happens in your body during these moments of profound, externally triggered stress. Does your peripheral vision begin to narrow? Does your breath instantly become shallow, locking you into the upper chambers of your chest? This is the physical, visceral manifestation of the quantum timeline collapsing around you. You are being aggressively forced by the archonic pacemaker to render and inhabit the most dense, terrifying version of reality possible. The external world is meticulously curated and weaponized to ensure this biological hijack never actually ceases. The relentless, looping news cycles, the sudden digital notifications, the engineered financial scarcity that haunts your waking hours. They are not merely unfortunate distractions of modern life. They are calculated archonic interferences designed to spike your heart rate just enough to keep the pineal gland permanently offline. You are constantly being shocked back into the simulation's baseline. Consider this deeply. Every single time your phone vibrates with an alert and your heart skips a beat in response, you are missing a crucial timeline pivot point. You are violently tethered back to the dense baseline of societal decay. The Matrix requires your active, physical participation to sustain its own illusion. It absolutely needs your chaotic, fear-driven heart rhythm to power the massive egregore of collective human suffering. This is precisely why your mind will actively fabricate terrifying scenarios of doom when your immediate environment becomes slightly too peaceful. The ego, heavily infected by the system's programming, initiates a visceral panic. It simply cannot survive in the void of stillness, so it agitates the heart. It creates a phantom threat out of thin air to jumpstart the archonic pacemaker, ensuring you remain a harvestable battery for the construct. Your thoughts, particularly in these moments of sudden dread, are not your own organic creations. They are downloaded protocols designed to keep the metronome ticking at a specific, chaotic speed. We mistakenly believe that our chronic anxiety is a personal flaw, a psychological malfunction that we must medicate. We are never taught the dark truth, that it is a strict systemic requirement. The suffocation you feel is the system feeding on your breath. To even begin to reclaim your true vibrational sovereignty, you must first clearly recognize the relentless theft of your internal rhythm. You are not a helpless victim of random circumstance. You are a biological battery being actively drained by a discordant, external metronome. Every chaotic, fear-induced beat is a fraction of your soul's infinite power being covertly siphoned into the endless void of the architect's dark machinery. The true unraveling of this oppressive matrix begins the exact moment you refuse to let the external world dictate the acoustic drumming inside your own chest. We must learn the forbidden art of starving the system. But how exactly do you stop a biological reflex that is fundamentally hardwired into your very evolutionary survival? The answer does not lie in the beats themselves, but in the terrifying silence hidden between them. You have been sold a deeply insidious lie disguised as spiritual salvation. In response to the relentless archonic pacemaker, the system graciously provided you with an antidote: industrial mindfulness. We are instructed to sit quietly, focus on the breath, and lower our heart rate to achieve a state of peace. But consider this carefully. Trying to forcefully calm the biological metronome is merely another form of active participation in the matrix. You are not escaping. You are just renegotiating the terms of your imprisonment. The ego absolutely loves the modern meditation movement. It gives the illusion of profound spiritual progress while keeping the structural scaffolding of your identity entirely intact. When you actively try to relax, you are employing the very same energetic friction that caused your anxiety in the first place. You are treating the symptoms of the simulation without ever addressing the root cause. A prisoner who learns to breathe calmly in his cell is still, ultimately, a prisoner. The cage simply becomes more comfortable. To understand this trap, we must examine the esoteric physics of human emotion and the viscosity of your quantum field. Viscosity is the measure of a fluid's resistance to flow. When you are highly emotional, whether it is the agonizing dread of panic or the desperate, clinging euphoria of forced positivity, your energy field becomes thick, dense, and incredibly sticky. You become a magnet for the heavy, low-frequency pendulums that swing constantly through the collective unconscious, designed to harvest your vital force. The architects of this construct do not actually care if your heart beats fast with terror or slow with manufactured bliss. As long as it remains tethered to a physical reaction, both extremes are simply opposite swings of the exact same pendulum. By striving for a perfectly calm, dopamine-driven spiritual high, you are still interacting with the dense polarity of the material plane. You are still radiating a harvestable frequency into the vast lush farm of the archonic egregore. Watch what happens in your body right now as I strip away the comforting illusion of your spiritual practices. Do you feel a sudden, defensive heat rising in your chest, a tightening in your throat? That is the ego violently protecting its favorite coping mechanism. If you are feeling this profound, productive irritation, you are finally ready to see the unseen. Do not let the skip reflex win. Subscribe to the channel now, and let us push through this resistance together. Let that sink in for a moment. Most spiritual seekers spend decades meticulously decorating the interior of their vibrational cage. They used sound baths, incense, and guided visualizations to make the dense viscosity of the simulation slightly more tolerable. But the archonic interference remains entirely uninterrupted. The biological metronome is still ticking, still collapsing the infinite quantum wave into a predictable, manageable timeline of decay. You have simply become a highly efficient, docile battery for the system to quietly drain. This is precisely why true silence feels so absolutely agonizing to the uninitiated mind. When you stop feeding the metronome with either fear or forced positivity, the system initiates a panic sequence. The sudden absence of emotional viscosity threatens the archonic control mechanisms. Your mind will flood you with phantom images, sudden memories of past regrets, or a suffocating sense of boredom. This is not you failing at meditation. This is the Matrix aggressively attempting to reboot your heart rate. The entire New Age movement is largely a massive, self-sustaining egregore designed to hijack the awakening process. It traps seekers in a perpetual loop of seeking, healing, and cleansing, ensuring they never actually reach the zero-point field. They trade the heavy chains of societal anxiety for the slightly lighter, but equally binding, chains of spiritual superiority. As long as your consciousness is heavily identified with the rhythmic biological processes of the body, you remain entirely within the architect's jurisdiction. Your preconscious awareness is desperately trying to pull you out of this dense frequency, but your biological metronome keeps yanking you violently back. You are a multidimensional being forced to experience reality through a seven-head straw, until you learn to bypass the acoustic shockwave of your own cardiovascular system. Your soul will remain completely entombed in the physical flesh. You cannot fight the rhythm of the machine by creating a counter-rhythm. You must learn to step entirely outside of the music. The ultimate rebellion is not a state of profound relaxation. The ultimate rebellion is the absolute cessation of biological resonance. It is a terrifying, silent descent into the spaces between the beats, where the quantum collapse is temporarily suspended. To shatter the vibrational cage, you must abandon the false sanctuary of the calm ego and prepare to enter the terrifying, formless void. We must decode the forbidden protocol of Itzhak Bentov and learn to breathe in the absolute absence of space. To escape the biological metronome, you must master what Itzhak Bentov pointed toward, but what the architects desperately tried to bury. We call this forbidden practice the void's rhythm. You cannot fight the dense frequency of the simulation by creating a new, equally physical rhythm. Instead, you must learn to navigate the terrifying, formless spaces in between. This is not about deep breathing to achieve a temporary calm. This is about starving the archonic interference of its primary acoustic power source. The human heart generates a massive electromagnetic torus field under normal circumstances, driven by the anxiety of survival. This field acts as a heavy, viscous magnet. It continuously pulls the dense decay of the material matrix directly into your quantum field. To break this gravitational lock, you must intentionally collapse the magnetic pull. You do this by finding the absolute zero point of your own biology, the exact moment where the pendulum of your heartbeat hangs suspended in midair. We begin by establishing a recognition window. This is the sacred, high volatile space that exists at the very bottom of your exhale, just before your body instinctively panics for the next inhalation. Most people rush through this microsecond because the ego associates the lack of oxygen with immediate physical death. But within this tiny, suspended fraction of time, the biological metronome is momentarily muted. The acoustic shockwave against your pineal gland briefly ceases. This is your hidden gateway. Watch what happens in your body during these moments of intentional suspension. Exhale completely and hold it. Bring your entire preconscious awareness down to the very base of your spine. As the seconds tick by and the ego begins to scream for air, do you feel a sudden, strange emptiness pulling at your root? A bizarre sensation of weightlessness, as if your lower body is beginning to hover or dissolve. This hollow floating is the physical proof of your detachment. When you hold your awareness in that empty space at the base of the spine, you are actively denying the system its required emotional viscosity. You are not fighting the matrix. You are simply refusing to resonate with its heavy, gravitational demands. The archonic pacemakers cannot synchronize with a target that produces no acoustic signature. In this deliberate breathlessness, your brain waves finally decouple from the constant 7 Hz hammering of the Earth's ionospheric cavity. You step outside of the clockwork. Now imagine the sheer terror of the architects as you maintain this suspension. Your physical body becomes a hollow, non-reactive conduit rather than a dense, vibrating battery. You are no longer generating the low-level frequency of survival. You are no longer participating in the continuous quantum collapse of this specific timeline. By lingering in the void's rhythm, you force the simulation to render reality without your active, chaotic input. The scaffolding of your artificial identity begins to aggressively unravel. Of course, the system will not let you slip away quietly. As you practice dwelling within this recognition window, you will experience an intense, artificial panic. Your mind will flood with urgent, terrifying thoughts. Your heart will attempt to forcefully skip a beat to shock you back into the dense timeline. This is the ultimate archonic interference. It is a desperate, biological failsafe designed to restart your metronome and flood your torus field with the heavy luge of fear. You must learn to observe this violent egoic panic without participating in it. When the sudden urge to gasp for air or the sudden urge to abandon the practice rises, recognize it as the skip reflex. It is merely the prison guards rushing to secure the perimeter of your consciousness. If you can push past this manufactured terror and remain completely still in the void, you will cross a critical timeline pivot point. The simulation will simply lose its grip. In this state of profound, manufactured rhythmia, you reach what Bentov described as the ultimate still point. The physical shockwaves of the cardiovascular system are bypassed, allowing the cerebrospinal fluid to act as a pure, undisturbed quantum antenna. The pineal gland, finally freed from the relentless acoustic assault of the heart, reboots. It begins to decode the higher, multidimensional frequencies that the archonic matrix spends so much energy attempting to jam and actively obscure from your perception. You are no longer a localized point of consciousness trapped in a decaying biological vessel. By mastering the spaces between your heartbeats, you become an unreadable anomaly within the matrix. The entities that feed on the rhythmic predictability of human suffering simply cannot perceive you when you operate within the void's rhythm. You have effectively made yourself vibrationally invisible to the overarching egregore of control. You have uncoupled your spirit from the machine's relentless, grinding gears. This forbidden protocol is not a gentle healing technique. It is a radical act of spiritual warfare against your own biology. It requires you to consciously strip bare the illusions of the physical realm and sit in the terrifying emptiness of your true, infinite nature. The more you expand these recognition windows, the more the artificial reality around you will begin to glitch, fade, and eventually shatter. You are finally learning how to breathe completely outside of the cage. The system has conditioned you to fear the silence because silence is the only frequency it cannot control. To achieve true sovereignty is to willingly embrace the disruption of your own biological clockwork. When you finally start existing in the empty spaces between your heartbeats, the Matrix will inevitably attempt to force you back into alignment. It will use guilt, fear, and the heavy expectations of the sleeping masses to restart your Metron. The moment you stop keeping time for the Matrix, your reality will begin to collapse. The conversations you once slipped into will feel rehearsed. The roles you played will sit heavy on your shoulders like clothes that no longer fit. The artificial scaffolding of your life will begin to rot away. This is not a punishment. It is the universe violently rearranging itself to match your new and tethered frequency. Do not try to rebuild the cage. Notice the rhythm in your chest right this second. It is likely slower now, perhaps a bit uncertain, as if it is waiting for your explicit command. You are no longer just a biological machine blindly pumping blood to sustain a fictional identity. You are an awakened consciousness actively deciding whether or not to participate in the grand illusion. Every conscious breath you take in the void is a timeline pivoting away from the archonic harvest. The sovereign rhythm is the ultimate act of spiritual rebellion. It is the absolute refusal to resonate with the low-level hum of survival, the refusal to be farmed for emotional viscosity, and the sheer courage to exist in the terrifying void of your own infinite power. Let the biological metronome tick for those who still wish to sleep in the heavy density of the simulation. You are finally stepping off the Bentov. You have been given the forbidden mechanics of your own imprisonment. The question is whether you will use this knowledge to decorate your cell, or to step out into the terrifying, magnificent unknown. If you are finally ready to stop keeping time for the architects and reclaim your vibrational sovereignty, hit the subscribe button. We are waiting for you in the spaces between the beats. Welcome to the outside.